हृदयाय जितेन्द्रियाय तेजस्विने स्वागतम् उदार हृदयाय जितेन्द्रियाय तेजस्विने स्वागतम् जनप्रियाय धीमते धैर्यप्रदाय स्वागतम् जनप्रियाय धीमते धैर्यप्रदाय स्वागतम् स्वागतम् गणपते गणपते प्रसन्नात्मने बहुभक्ताय मनोहराय स्वागतम् प्रसन्नात्मने बहुभक्ताय मनोहराय स्वागतम् विनयशीलाय शान्ताय शान्तिप्रदाय स्वागतम् विनयशीलाय शान्ताय शान्तिप्रदाय स्वागतम् सनिगग पमगरिग पप तपमग पद सनिल पद गरि सस सनिगग पमगरिग पप तपमग पद सनिल पद गरि सस सनिग पमगरि सग पद सरित्रि गरि सनि ग पमगरिग स्वागतम् गणपते स्वागतम् गणपते
लव करये लव करये गणराया सकळासी भेटी द्याया
नाचत नाचत आरे गणपती नाचत नाचत आले गणपती
आई घागुया वाजती पायी घागुया वाजती पायी घागुया वाजती पायी घागुया वाजती
नाचत नाचत आले गणपती
नाचत नाचत आले गणपती
नाचत नाचत
नाचत नाचत नाचत नाचत आले गणपती पायी घागुर्या वाजती, पायी घागुर्या वाजती, पायी घागुर्या वाजती.
अंगी शेंदुराची उठी, अंगी शेंदुराची, अंगी शेंदुराची, अंगी शेंदुराची उठी.
माथा शोभतसे किरीटी, माथा शोभतसे किरीटी.
केशर कस्तुरी ललाटी, केशर कस्तुरी ललाटी.
हाती मोदकाची वाटी, हाती मोदकाची वाटी, हाती मोदकाची, हाती मोदकाची, हाती मोदकाची वाटी.
नाचत नाचत आले गणपती,
नाचत नाचत आले गणपती,
नाचत नाचत,
नाचत नाचत, नाचत नाचत आले गणपती. पायी घागुर्या वाजती, पायी घागुर्या वाजती, वाजती, पायी घागुर्या वाजती. तुका म्हणे पाही पाही, तुका म्हणे पाही पाही, विठ्ठल गणपती तुझा नाही, विठ्ठल गणपती तुझा नाही. विठ्ठल 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 विठ्ठल
गणपती 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 गणपती,
विठ्ठल 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 विठ्ठल
गणपती 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 गणपती,
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल
गणपती गणपती,
विठ्ठल विठ्ठल
गणपती गणपती,
विठ्ठल
गणपती
विठ्ठल
गणपती,
विठ्ठल
गणपती
विठ्ठल
गणपती.
विठ्ठल गणपती तुझा नाही, विठ्ठल गणपती तुझा नाही.
तुझा नाही, तुझा नाही, तुझा नाही, तुझा गं गणपतये नमः, गं गणपतये नमः, गं गणपतये नमः, गं गणपतये नमः. विनायकाय नमः, विघ्नराजाय नमः, गौरीपुत्राय नमः, गणेश्वराय नमः. स्कन्दाग्रजाय नमः, अव्ययाय नमः, भूताय नमः, दक्षाध्यक्षाय नमः, द्विजप्रियाय नमः, अग्निगर्भच्छिते नमः, इन्द्रश्रीप्रदाय नमः, वाणीबलप्रदाय नमः, शर्वतनयाय नमः, गौरीतनुजाय नमः, शर्वरीप्रियाय नमः, सर्वात्मकाय नमः, सृष्टिकर्त्रे नमः, देवानेकार्चिताय नमः, ॐ शिवाय नमः, ॐ शुद्धाय नमः, ॐ बुद्धिप्रियाय नमः, शान्ताय नमः, ब्रह्मचारिणे नमः, गजाननाय नमः, वैमातुराय नमः, मुनिस्तुत्याय नमः, दीपदन्ताय नमः, चतुर्बाहवे नमः. गं गणपतये नमः, गं गणपतये नमः, चतुराय नमः लम्बोदराय नमः शूर्पकर्णाय नमः
Hari Om everyone.
Very awesome.
Hope and pray everyone is doing well. And welcome. First we will have the invocation, and then today is a very, very important day for us all Hindus. Why it is important, I'll go briefly touch upon that and then open this forum for the question answers for this particular day. Hope by the time I finish my prayers and open my eyes in the participants list, there is a miracle that happens. So let's begin. ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः Happy Raksha Bandhan to all of you. Before I can say to all the sisters out there, from the brothers out there, once let us first understand what the actual tradition is and what Raksha Bandhana means. Raksha means for protection. This particular vow taken to protect. In any Vedic puja karma, before the puja is to be done, see, I'm not talking about the daily regular puja. There are those special occasions when we do certain karma. For that particular karma and its success, before the puja begins, there are several steps. One of the steps is the main yajaman, the main doers, usually the husband and wife, they take a sankalpa, they take a vow, and they commit that may this event or this particular activity bring forth auspiciousness. And there, that commitment is recognized by tying each other. The husband ties it to the wife and the wife ties it to the husband. And that is called Raksha Dharana. Raksha Dharana, to say that I will protect you so that you will have enough room to explore, unfold, help, and grow. And similarly, the other part, the spouse promises the same, and both of them, thus protecting in a very secured environment, reach out to the community or to that activity to ensure that there is a better way than what we had already seen. Let us come together to do that. Let us come together to provide that. The most ancient that we see, it comes in Raja Satya Harishchandra's life, where in order to fulfill the vow, the promise that he had taken, he gives away all his kingdom in charity, and still he was, so he starts working as a worker in the crematorium. So at that point, the child, their son, wants to go out and play with other kids during the late evening night time. The mother is scared. Intuitively she knows that there is something that is going to happen, so she instantly, from the sari itself, because she didn't have a sacred thread or something that to tie with, so from her sari she pulls out and tears it up and ties it as a raksha, the mother tying it to the son. Probably that is the reason where in all the Bollywood movies, these famous scenes of the actresses tearing their sari and tying it on the wound or tying it, probably the origin is from that Raja Satya Harishchandra scene. And needless to say that the child gets bit by a poisonous, I think it is a snake, and it is this Raksha that actually protects that child. Even prior to that, there is another story of Shachi Devi, who ties this to her husband Indra when he is going out there to wage a war. Says, may my best wishes protect you. And it's only in the last 150 or so years where the tradition or the trend, I won't say tradition, but the trend has changed, where the sister ties it to the brother and the brother promises to protect his sister always. Oh, cute. Yes, it appears cute, but the origins of the story is not just limited to a brother and sister. It is the vow of protection from the parents to the child to the parents, to the spouses, to the community. It's an act of remembering our commitment and staying steadfast to that commitment. So that is Raksha Bandhan. So happy Raksha Bandhan. The Shravana Purnima, the full moon in the month of Shravana, we celebrate that. Then in the same note, it is also the vow that the brahmacharins, the brahmachari and brahmacharinis, they change their yajnopavita, the sacred thread. This is called the upakarma. That's the Sanskrit word for that whole activity, upakarma. And having changed that yajnopavita, they sit down renewing their vows of brahmacharya, and this day is the time when they are expected to chant in one sitting 1008 times of Gayatri mantra. So that commitment for brahmacharya life. What is brahmacharya life? Brahmacharya life is when sukharthinah vidyam tyajet, vidyarthinah sukham tyajet. If you are anticipating a lot of sukha, luxury and pleasure oriented life, then vidyam tyajet, please give up educating yourself. But if you are focusing on education, discipline yourself so that the mind is not distracted by these avocations of pleasure and various kinds of luxuries. So the brahmachari, why is that brahmachari trying to discipline themselves so much? So that the word brahmachari becomes sarthaka, becomes meaningful. What does the word brahmachari mean? Brahmani charati iti evam sankalpaha. To walk this path, to find the absolute state of truth, which is Brahman. So that is the second aspect of today. Third aspect is, how do we know how to reach to that Brahman? Then the scriptures. Today also is called the Hayagriva Jayanti. There are two Hayagrivas mentioned in our scriptures. One is an Asura, the other one is an avatar of Bhagavan Sri Mahavishnu. So I'm talking about the avatar of Bhagavan Sri Mahavishnu. I'm not talking about the Asura. Bhagavan Sri Mahavishnu comes down in the form of a horse-headed form and gives this knowledge of Vedic wisdom to Brahmaji, so that understanding which he can do the tapas, penance on it, and then start creating this creation. So today happens to be that day when Bhagavan Hayagriva, his avatar, came down to give this knowledge to Brahmaji. Therefore, incidentally, the Indian government, I think in late 60s, 68 or 69, started this Samskrita Divas, Sanskrit Day, to promote the practice of using Sanskritam in day-to-day life. And the reason was that this was the day when this knowledge was given to Brahmaji by Bhagavan himself. Therefore, this knowledge which is embedded, codified in the Sanskritam language, therefore we do celebrate that as well. Hayagriva Jayanti. Then today also is Onam. Onam is the day when Bhagavan Vamana Avatara took place. Though the importance is less of Vamana and more of Bali, the king, the Samrat Bali, Chakravarti Bali, because of his sense of dutifulness and sacrifice, piousness in fulfilling one's own responsibilities. So he had given a vow to Bhagavan saying, I'll give you 3 steps, because Bhagavan had asked for 3 steps. Now, having thus promised, Bhagavan immediately, who was in a Vamana meaning in a small form, he suddenly took a Virata Rupa, he became gigantic, and he said, with 1 step I take this world, Bhuloka, this world, earth. With the 2nd step he said, I cover the rest of the world. Then he turned to Bali and said, where do I put my 3rd one? Most of the southern Indian languages, there is this usage. And even in Hindi, I think, when the child turns around and says, Mama, ye kahan rakhu? And the mama, having given that instruction 100 million times and still being asked out of sheer frustration, says, mera sar pe rak. So King Bali also thought the same way. Bhagavan, you may have taken with 2 steps the entire world that belonged to me, but I will not go back on my word. Please put your foot on my head. Because that which has to be offered is this ahankara, this ego, and that ego is being surrendered at Bhagavan's feet. So Onam is also celebrated today. Vamana Jayanti, it is otherwise known as Vamana Avatara Jayanti. So Hayagriva also came, Vamana also came. There are various other celebrations. So I'll stop with these 2-3 because the list is pretty long. So invoking Bhagavan and Gurudev's blessings on everyone, that today being that auspicious day, may we take a re-look into our own lives, all our vows that we have, all our focused attention for today and the future ahead. Are we in the same direction? Are we going in the same attitude? Is there anything that has to be changed, fixed, tightened up probably a little bit, and gear up, clean up, tune up towards that goal that I have set myself for. So may you do the fine tuning, and to achieve what you are fine tuning for, may the force be with you. Star Wars. Now, getting back to, okay, Hariji is also here. Okay, let me pull out my questions for all of you. Who should I call? Today's list is pretty small. Maybe after I ask all of you, I'll start questioning the brahmacharyans also. I love the expression on faces of people. That would be interesting. And if you have observed, though I'm saying it every week, most of the answers are given by them only. So it shouldn't be something new. Okay, let's start with Pranav.
No, no.
I'm doing well. Happy Raksha Bandhana. Good to see you. Can you move a turn so that the window is not the glare?
I can.
No, it is still a glare. Don't move to the window. Move away from the window and turn the laptop a little bit so that the glare is not there. Thank you. There we go. Gracias, senor. Now I can see you better. Otherwise, you were glowing too hard. Now I can handle this glare. Okay. Let me ask you the question. Okay, let's start with brahmacharya, and the vows of brahmacharya is what we were discussing. So let me ask on that. It says that brahmacharya should begin at body level. But isn't controlling the body a mental challenge? What is the difference between controlling oneself from the body level versus controlling at the mind level?
So from my understanding, that I found that first of all is the scope between the body and the mind, where the scope of acting you control with the body are, I guess, limited in the sense that it's the sense organs as well as other physical things that you can, I guess, regulate. So what I saw is that, for example, as Gurudev writes, if you want to control certain sense organs and find the balance where you are not slave to them, you can, I guess, come up with like a routine or find like concrete goals where you can regulate it. And compared to actually controlling with the mind, I thought the difference is that the mind, first of all, is a lot more difficult to control because you have to, I guess, gain a much more clear sense of conviction to understand what exactly is your conviction and something that you need to eliminate. So that's the first thing I thought. Like controlling the body is like a lot more simpler, where you can you can do like a week. Partly a mental challenge, but more of I guess finding that internal routine and rigor where you can really find that balance for yourself. So it's just my, I guess, simple understanding. And yeah, that's what
Thank you. I guess I could pull that one also, while talking suddenly. So what I was trying to say was, I should do that one sometimes seriously, in a serious note. Anyways, thank you, Pranav. Divya, what you got to say?
You hear me?
Yes.
So Pranav, yes, the main points that you brought up are excellent in answering this question. So I'll start with the example. In a car, the wheels are turned because of the engine, but so is the AC eventually because of the engine as well, right? You have an extra step in between. So none of the other parts in the car works. So in the same way here, when we talk about the mind, both of them are eventually controlled by our intellect, right? So the discipline of, so when they talk about brahmacharya to begin at the body level, we're talking about the instruments that are connected to the original engine. That's the most obvious for us to see, perceive, and control. So that's why they say first, think about controlling the way you behave, the way you talk, because you can literally see, violence in my hands. I can literally see the speech, hear the speech coming out of my mouth. So those are the most tangible extensions of control that I can gauge. And we start there, right? We began by saying, start with small doables and then work your way up. So we start with brahmacharya at the body level. It's still the mind, right? That's the original engine. But we look at these instruments. And then once the mechanics of control are established, or the basics are established, the foundations, then we can turn to the more subtler instruments to control. So when we go to controlling the mind, we're talking about the stream of thoughts. Each thought is now a subtle form. It's hard to gauge one thought from the other. When does it begin? When does it stop? How do I get in between it? How do I control the thoughts that arise and stop? So we start with the level of the body, and then we move to the level of the mind. But in the end, it's still the same engine that we're controlling.
Hari Garu, do you want to add anything?
Sure, Swamiji. Hari Om Swamiji, Hari Om everybody. When at the mental level, there's one exercise I like to do with the Vyavahaara kids, especially kindergarten to second grade. It's a fun one to do, where I tell them, for the next 10 seconds, don't look at the floor. But don't look at the floor. And I count 1 to 10. And the younger they are, the cuter they are about it. They'll all the way up, all the way like this, like that. Next 10 seconds.
Hari, can you repeat yourself in the last 10 seconds because we couldn't hear you?
So, and they look up like that and everything. And I say, okay, in the next 10 seconds then, do one more thing. Don't think about pink elephants for 10 seconds. Just don't think about pink elephants. And I start counting, and while I'm counting, I say, don't think about their pink legs, don't think about their pink trunks, but their big pink bottoms, don't think about them at all. Don't think about it, don't think about it. And they struggle. And I say, who didn't think about pink elephants? And then there's one kid that's too smart that raises his hand, but it's not true. Everyone, it's easier to not do the physical thing and not do that mental thing. And the rudimentary steps of staying disciplined and doing certain things with brahmacharya, that self-control, at the mental level, thoughts will always agitate. In a negative way of saying, don't think about this aspect, that I will think about it. It's impossible not to think of it. So physically restraining myself then at that level is easier to do as a starting step, as Divyaji mentioned.
Finito? Thank you. Another aspect that I think should be added in here is both body and mind are nothing but layers of matter. Both of them. One is a grosser aspect. That's why we call the physical body in Vedanta as the sthula sharira or gross body. Or how do you guys pronounce it? Gross body. Either or. And the mind or the internal equipment is called antakarana, and the antakarana is called sukshma. Sukshma meaning subtle. Subtle aspect of matter. Both of them, we are talking about layers of matter. So that is first point. Now, when you look at the texture of the matter that you are handling, it is easier to learn handling, disciplining, fine tuning at a grosser level. That makes it easier. Whereas the subtler level, it is that much more difficult to handle it. So once you have this ability at a physical level, you can gradually get to the level of the mind. So that was one point that I wanted to add in there. Thank you all. Now let's bring in the next one to answer. Gayatri.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om. Yes, Friday was Varamahalakshmi also. Okay, she just reminded me of that. Yeah. So that also is a part of this series of list of auspiciousness during the Shravana month.
Yes, Swamiji, I tried to put a Krishna background and my mom prevented me, telling me it was an insult to do that on Varalakshmi November. So
Okay. Good. Nice. You reminded us of it. The question for you is, when we compromise our convictions, we form a split in our personality, becoming cowardly in the face of further challenges in life. So this is a portion that has been taken from Gurudev's own words. So the question is, how do I determine the fine line between remaining flexible and adapting to the changing situations versus sacrificing my integrity when I compromise?
So I think that, let me talk. So one thing we really focused on, I think, was that you have your mind, which is the thing that is the capacity for willpower, and the buddhi, which is the thing that can expand that willpower. So I think, and then another thing that you said, Swamiji, was giving up is not an option. So there's sometimes the really small things that you can compromise on, like maybe you were expecting something and you didn't get that expectation. That's something I think you're allowed to compromise on. But other things, like if you set a goal for yourself, like I'll wake up at 7 a.m. instead of 7:30, like something small, and you don't make that, then you can't just compromise on that and give up, because that's doesn't let you build that capacity. Because each time you're failing there, you're not building up the determination that you need that will help your personality become more refined. So I think it's just, if you use your intellect to determine what that line is, or whether that action that you're compromising on or that thought you're compromising on is something that will impact you, then it's okay to do it if it's not like a big impact, if it's just like an expectation that can be compromised on versus something that's really something you need for your personality to become refined.
I definitely agree there, that knowing there are certain things that you are still practicing or trying to learn, and there will be a falter here or there, knowing it and giving yourself a room to grow, to be able to be fine to fall or to fail, but with an understanding that I'm not going to give up, I will dust it off and retry again, and not to consider that as a compromise or as a absolute in itself by declaring yourself as a loser or a failure. Nicely pointed. Hari, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. So in Dallas Center, every year we have a graduation for the high school students. And the past 18 years, since Swami Sarveshananji has been here, our graduation plaque has a quote that he's picked. Of all the countless inspiring quotes by Puja Gurudev, this one Swamiji picked to be on the plaque every single year. And it says, in matters of opinion, flow like water. In matters of principle, stay firm like a rock. Matters of opinion flow like water, matters of principle, stay firm like a rock. And if that is my litmus test to see when should I compromise versus when should I stay steady like a rock, then I'm on the right track to never compromising on my integrity. And then the next step is the challenge becomes distinguishing between what is opinion and what is a principle. Opinion that I hold very firmly, something I strongly believe in. Even if it is only a matter of opinion, I'll take it as a fact. I'll take it as a standard to live by. So making that distinction then is the next step. Once I've accepted that attitude of not compromising by looking at what's an opinion, what's actually a principle to live by.
Good one. Another layer of depth that can be added in is there are things in life where we have to be flexible, and there are things in life where we cannot have an option of flexibility. But we have to know where exactly we need to have that flexibility and where we cannot bargain for that shift or a change. And for many things we would say, yes, experiencing it personally is what is going to make that easier. But for this subtlety to be grasped, when Yaksha asks Yudhishthira, how does one become wise? Yudhishthira says, Vriddhopa sevaya. You become wise when you have the humility to serve those who are elderly. Elderly here meaning those who have experience abundantly, and you are serving them. So if they have worked in a particular field for 30 plus years, the best of the practices that they have had in that 30 years are given to you in a golden platter within a short amount of time without much exertion. So Vriddhopa sevaya, that is where you gain this clarity as to what is flexible in life and what is supposed to be firm in life. To understand that, when you use the GPS, when you use the map on your gadget, when you open it up, there is already a given, that is your point of origin. Wherever you are, it is already taking the information from your GPS. But you have to type in the point that you want to reach. So that is decided. Nowadays, the system of this maps has become a little more intelligent. They take the live feed from the traffic and give you options while you're still driving, give you options saying, this seems to be a faster route. So when the algorithm behind in that map and your routing, it cannot change your destination. That is firm. But to reach there, one can have several routing methods. The routes can be multiple. What we have to decide is what is the safest, fastest, and the most noble path to take. They say the goals justify the means. Is that the saying, or the other way around? The other way around? Okay. So you don't have to justify that because I have to reach to a certain point, I'll take to a path which may not be noble, which may not be right, which may not be just because I am on this side of the road and this side of the road is having heavy traffic jam, the other side is open, so I cannot, pull my car onto the other side and drive on the opposite direction. When it happens in certain places, I don't want to go there. So we see that happen. So we cannot take the path wherein it reaching the goal, yes, that is firm, but reaching the goal in the most noble and the most righteous method is what has to be understood. So the goal is firm, reaching the goal with the most righteous mindset is also firm, but what is flexible is the routing to it. I don't have to be caught up in the mindset that this is the only route. No, there can be multiple ways of doing it. We need not be stuck with one. So when I teach somebody a skill set, I tell that don't experiment while I'm teaching. Learn this. Once you learn this, from here on, you can make a lot of changes to it and personalize it. That routing where you personalize it, that is in your hands, and there you need to have flexibility. But that which cannot change is the goal, and as Hari put it, the values and principles to reach there, those are non-negotiables. So if we understand these two at every intersection of life, we will start making better decisions and a better equipped way to look at life itself. So I think that gives you a comprehensive outlook to that particular question. Thank you both. Now let me call Hemant. எப்படி இருக்க ஹேமந்த்?
நல்லா இருக்கே சுவாமி. சுவாமி எப்படி இருக்க?
கொஞ்சம் லவுடா பேசணும்.
நல்லா இருக்கே சுவாமிஜி. சுவாமிஜி எப்படி இருக்கார்?
நான் ஆசமா இருக்கேன். நான் சூப்பரா இருக்கேன். So the question for you is, let me see. How do we prevent energizing inspiration from becoming unreachable expectation?
So the thing is, when it comes to expectations, it's always important to have a sense of realism about it. Well, no, not a sense. It is always important to have a lot of realism about them. So I can sum it up in 3 words: know your limits. So basically the idea is, yes, that inspiration is definitely a driving force that should, motivate to do a lot of different things, but it is also important to know your limits. For instance, like, I'll use a very simple example. Like, if I want to run a marathon, for instance, but I have not done any training for it, then of course that's not going to, it's not going to happen properly. Or if I want to, sing, but I don't, I don't have the voice, I'm not able to speak, I'm mute basically, then also that's not going to happen. So, basically the idea is be inspired, definitely try out new things and be risky about them, but at the same time, know your limits. I think when I was reading this book, Storm to Perform, Swami Swarupananji put it very aptly. He said, be a realist, like in the sense, have the enthusiasm of an optimist, but the caution of a pessimist. I think was that line. So.
Nicely quoted, nicely quoted. Very well marked. Divya, do you want to add anything? Is there anything to add to it? We can't hear you.
Now,
Yeah.
so of
Your voice is fading in and out.
About now, if I speak really slowly, will that work?
It is working. I think whatever you're doing, continue.
We like the result of something, but we don't necessarily want to walk the journey to get there. For example, I want to be a billionaire, but I don't want to pick up the phone and call individually to market my product, right? So we see an inspiration, we're mesmerized by the achievement of the people we look up to, but we fall short when we start to struggle with the groundwork it takes to get there. So the difference is we've started to focus on the fruits of our actions instead of the steps of the progress. And we have to remember to break it down into the doables and keep our eyes focused on the next step in front of us. That helps us from, turning that inspiration into this unachievable expectation. That switch in our focus from the result to the process is where that mishap happens. So in terms of the three values we were given here, Satyam, Brahmacharya, and Ahimsa, it sets us up to we want to be perfect. We want no flaws in our personality. We want to achieve that really fast. But as soon as we start working on it, we start to see how wrong my personality is and how many flaws there are within me, right? So when we that's when the result and the process get confused and dejection starts to come from that. And so we need to analyze that standard we have, break it down into the doables again, and focus on that one step at a time. And now, after we've seen the inspiration, find inspiration within. Every step that I achieve should give me more confidence that I'm headed in the right direction, and that's all that matters. So that's how we keep that inspiration from becoming an unreasonable expectation.
Thank you. Harigaru?
One thought I'll add is that oftentimes I expect something to turn out really well or the way I want it to, thinking that if I do everything perfectly on my end, it'll turn out that way. And that's an unrealistic expectation to have. In a humorous way we can put it, like when we have those devices, you say, okay, blank, like the GOOGLE word. And I have one here, so I'm not saying it, but Auntie will speak to you from inside. You can, with all pronunciation correctly saying it, play Rudram or whatever you want to say, and it'll go in there and it'll say playing Jagjit Singh, and it'll play something like that. So an example like that, I did everything the right way. Nothing I did was incorrect. I did it perfect with Chadran and everything. That thing didn't turn out the right way. So in life also, but it can be tragic when I say I put forth full effort diligently following these values, but that can't be an expectation then that things will go the way I want to.
I think all three of you pretty much gave a very good comprehensive picture. I'll not laden it with more layers here. I think I'll leave it there. Nice comprehensive cover to this particular question. Thank you, all three of you. Let me ask my next question to Meena Mana. How are you, Meena?
Hi, I'm Swamiji.
Doing well?
Yes, how about you?
I am doing awesome. A very simple question. I was giggling when I saw this question, and I wanted to see how people would take it up and answer it. How does the simple act of making my bed help me conquer anything else in life?
I think the act of making your bed, making your bed just helps, like, with the mindset that it's bed made, this is achieved, and this I can move on, and it's good, and I can get up and say I'm going on with my day. Like other tasks, other doables going to be accomplished, this bed is made. So that's it. It's very short, very simple and sweet question.
Yeah. Divya, anything else simple and sweet to add in there?
Well, again, it comes back to the first question that we addressed, right? The mechanics of control. And it gets built in with that simple act of, can I get out of my lethargic sleepiness, get up, put the cover on the bed and say that I am not going to get back into it. It's covered for the day, and then move on from it and not come back to that bed. Right. So that simple act of just making my bed is actually setting up that mindset for the rest of the day, that any tamasic tendencies I have, it's covered up until it's night. I can open it up then. So it's that simple mechanics that are being built in that is the foundation for every other control that we need.
Fair enough. Nothing much to add from my side either. Good job.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Now let me call upon Aparna. हरिओम अपर्णा, कैसे हो?
हरिओम स्वामी जी, बढ़िया। आप कैसे हो?
मैं भी एकदम चंगा. College started?
जी स्वामी जी.
Oh, that is your dorm.
No, I'm home. I don't have any classes tomorrow. So I'm
Oh,
home
okay.
for one more day.
Enjoy. Mama's khana is the best khana in the world.
Yes.
So my question to you is, for a person who has understood that happiness lies in the mind and not in the objects of the world, brahmacharya is not difficult discipline to practice. What are the details of growing pains and personal evolution of getting to understanding that happiness lies in one's own mind? Question एक और बार पढ़ूं?
Yes, please.
Okay, there's a first portion of the statement that, happiness lies in the mind, not in the objects of the world. Brahmacharya, for practicing brahmacharya, it is not difficult for such people. Those who know that my tripti, my ananda is within. It is independent of the world outside. So the question here is, just to understand for anybody who is trying to practice it, what are the growing pains, early teething issues in trying to practice this brahmacharya in day-to-day life?
Okay. To be honest, Swamiji, I literally prepared for every single question but this. I was stumped when I read it. And of course, this is the one I have to answer. Okay. Anyways, I think one of the first steps is literally the growing pain. The pain of restraining or denying my mind what it wants because it still desires things outside, because it still thinks that there's some joy in that object. And then when I do the first step of some sort of discipline and cut off that supply of that object, there will be that initial pain. And I feel, oh man, I really wish I could eat that. That happened when I first went vegan. I suddenly started noticing all the things that aren't vegan and I would want to eat them. And when I first did that, it took a lot of, I had to step back and I just remind myself of my convictions and say, why did I go vegan in the first place? Why am I instituting this discipline in the first place? This pain then immediately gets sublimated because the conviction is reinstated upon introspection. And then there's another type of pain is when I indulge when I'm not supposed to. And that feeling of, oh, I shouldn't have indulged. Again, that feeling goes away after I introspect. And I think, okay, why did I make the mistake? What are the consequences of making that mistake? Why doesn't it measure up against my own conviction? And then why am I never going to make, or why am I going to not make that mistake ever again? So upon introspecting against and comparing what is happening outside to what convictions I've chosen and strengthening those convictions, eventually the practice of brahmacharya becomes easier, because through those convictions, I can remember more easily, or I can access that conviction more easily, that my joy is actually within me and not in anything outside. And that discipline is actually very natural and not something I have to impose upon myself constantly.
But without preparing, if you could answer this much, I'm sure you would have nailed it with the preparation. Good attempt. Hari, you got it?
So when sometimes you're reading a book and it's like highway hypnosis, you keep reading, but you're not really comprehending. And then you read one certain fragment and it really hits you and you say, where am I right now? That happened when I read this for the first time. That line, brahmacharya is not a difficult discipline to practice. Like, how can you say that? Mahatma Gurudev, yeah, brahmacharya is not difficult. Boom, go. But it's very difficult, right? Because objects of the world are so tempting, so attached to them, gaining so much pleasure from them. So now trying to see that I have to get to that point where happiness only lies in my state of mind, simply change what that state of mind is. But these objects have so much sway. Objects of the world, those things that give me pleasure through any of my five senses, anything that does that is that. Even if it's praise that I've heard in the past, thinking and ruminating on that praise again and again, that's also an object of the world that I'm getting pleasure from. So if I have to make that change, it's not going to be instant. That's the first thing I have to accept. Secondly, that it will be a slow process of evolution and something I must ponder on a lot. So when there are these feel-good objects that are there, from the grossest level of food to the most subtle of something that someone else thinks of me, and that's something I really hold on to as something pleasurable to myself, then understanding why is that making me happy and at what level? Is that happiness I get from that going to sustain me for a few minutes, like food? Is it going to keep me happy for a few days, like someone's praise? And if not, then why am I going after it? So seeing it as a thing of how much pleasure will it really give me in the immediate short run? And if it's not giving me that much for more than a long amount of time, if it's something that I get addicted to and I see I only go in a spiral downwards, indulging more and more in that, then asking myself constantly, why am I going for it then? Seeing why is this mind always falling for it? And that's the slow evolution that I can start taking before I get to that point where happiness really does truly lie in the mind. And I don't have to rely on any of these outer objects to feel that small semblance of peace.
Thank you, Hari. There is this beautiful effort by Chinmaya Mission that Puja Guruji started it, and now Puja Swami Swarupananji is ushering it forward. And it is called Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth. Oh, Hari, come back to the spotlight. Because I was going to ask you to present that thought and present it to all of them, so that not just them, but all those who are listening can become the ambassadors for this effort. And please, the floor is yours.
So hopefully everyone has heard by now of just what CVV is, Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth. And it's a university, an effort that's being made by Chinmaya Mission to build a university. Now there's so many universities out there. What's special about this one? Well, when it comes to education in India, a Hindu value-based education, the education in ancient India was like no other. And any scientific endeavor, anything in the field of economics, politics, the field of agriculture, sustenance, any field we look at, in ancient India, there was great depth to that education, to that theory, to that practice, to flourishing the society with that. Now, over the past several centuries, invasions by barbarians, whether it's deception by other forces, that education sadly has not only been lost from the world, our own Indian Hindus and us products of that, we don't value that as well. We don't even know much about it. So near the end of Pujya Gurudev's life, in the early 90s, Pujya Gurudev said, we need a university like this that teaches Sanskritam, that teaches these values, that teaches the glory of what ancient India was, of what this Hindu education is, and we need to give that to the masses. Now, couple that with all the other management courses they have, Western sciences that they have, that unique and beautiful marriage between what the Hindu value system is, what the modern world requires today, that's what Chinmaya Vishwavidyapit is. Now, for an effort that's this big, we need to raise money for it. Whether it's hiring the best faculty, whether it's making a beautiful campus, whether it's having all the amenities needed to run a successful university, that does require money. Now for this then, this is where we come in. I'm saying we, I'm the same age level. We come in as chicks and Sethugadis, where, let me share my screen real quick. And if we come here, everyone sees the flyer, right? Good. So,
Yeah.
so this is a flyer here about what's called crowdfunding, where we want to spread the word as far and wide as we can. And we each have individual networks as mission members. People that may not necessarily be affiliated with the mission or mission members, but they believe in good causes when they see them. And this is one of the best causes to give to. Crowdfunding is where we go and tell them about this project, about the beautiful vision of what our Hindu rishis had and what Puja Gurudev brought to us, and say, can you please support this beautiful endeavor? And you'll see, we'll put this flyer inside the chat before the session closes as well. So you see the flyer here, and there's a QR code to go to the form and to donate. And here I'd like to show you this. Is the sign up sheet showing up right now on your screen?
I think that QR code is for registration.
That's for registration then. It's the QR code is for registration. And we'll also put this form in the chat. And this is for you to be a CVV ambassador. And just so the planning team knows that you are making an effort from where you are, what center you belong to, and that you're going to reach out to your personal network and reach out to as many as you can. And we can find sources of funding here from the unlikeliest of places. It's not that there's only a certain group of people who you reach out to. And when presenting this vision of what this university is, what the history of education in India has been, and what we're trying to do in this new 21st century, no doubt people will be inspired. And with you explaining the way you do, with the inspiration they see in your eyes when you're explaining it, no doubt that they'll donate. So Swamiji, with your permission, I'd like to put both of these links inside our chat for our Zoom session.
And as well on the Sunday group on the Signal, put it there as well.
That's all I have, Swamiji.
Thank you. So in the last 2 minutes, can you quickly chant, or should I ask Hemant for it? Hemant? Hemant, sorry man, I have to ask you, but I have to ask you to do a quick version.
Okay, sure.
Can I ask a really quick question, Swamiji?
We
Am I
have only
allowed to?
You are, but we have only 2 minutes. Can we take it offline?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to do a quick rendition. Shri Guru Charana Saroja Raja Nij Mana Mukura Sudari Baranau Raghuvara Vimala Jasu Jodhaya Gafalachari Bodhihina Dhanujani Sumira Bhavana Kumar Balabudhi Vidya Dehuhi Harhu Gale Savikar Jai Hanuman Gyana Gura Sagar Jai Kabishadi Uloka Ujagar Ramaduta Tulita Baladhama Hanchani Putra Bhavan Sudanama Mahavira Vikrama Vajarangi Kumadini Varasmati Kesangi Kanchana Varana Viraja Sumesa Kanana Kundala Kumchidagesa Hat Bajra Dvaja Viraje Kande Munjani Usaje Shankara Sumana Kesari Nandana Teja Pradapa Mahajagavandana Vidyavana Guni Adichatur Ramaka Jagari Beko Hatu Prabhu Charitra Suni Beko Rasia Rama Lakana Sita Manabasiya Sukshma Rupadari Si Hidikava Pigada Rupadari Langa Jarava Bhima Rupadari Asura Samare Ramachandra Ke Gaja Samare Laisa Jivana Lakana Jihai श्री रघुवीर हर शिवर लाए रघुपति कीनी बहुत बड़ाई तुम मम प्रिय भरदई सम भाई सहस बदन तुम जस गावे अस गई श्रीपति कंठ लगावे सनगादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा नारद सारद सहित अहिसा यम कुबेर दिगपाल जहाते कवि कोविद कहि सके कहाते तुम उपकार सुग्रीव ही कीना राम मिलाय राजबल दीना तुमरो मंत्र विभीषण माना लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना युग सहस्र जो जन पर भानु लील्यो ताहि मधुर फल जानु प्रभु मुद्रिका मेल मुख माही जल दिलांगी गए हचर जिनाही दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते सुगम अनुग्रह तुमरे देते राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे होत न आज्ञा बिनु बैसारे सब सुख लहे तुम्हारी शरणा तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना आपन तेज सवारो हापे तीनों लोक हाकते कापे भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे महावीर जब नाम सुनावे नासे रोग हरे सब पीरा जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा संकट से हनुमान छुड़ावे मन कर्म भजन ध्यान जो लावे सब भर राम तपस्वी राजा तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे सोहि अमित जीवन फल पावे चारों युग प्रताप तुम्हारा है प्रसिद्ध जगतो जिहारा साधु संत के तुम रखवारे हसुर निकंदन राम दुलारे हष्ट सिद्धि नव निधि के दाता असवर दीन जानकी माता राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा तुम्हारे भजन राम को भावे जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे अंत काल रघुवर पुर जाई जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई और देवता चित्तन धरई हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई संकट कटे मिठे सब पीरा जो सुमिरै हनुमत बल वीरा जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करो गुरुदेव की नाई जो शत बार पाठ कर कोई छूटई बंदी महासुख होई जो यह बड़े हनुमान चालीसा होई सिद्धि की गौरीसा तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा की जय नाथ हृदय महडेरा की जय नाथ हृदय महडेरा पवन तनय संकट हरण मंगल मूर्ति रूप राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसव सुरभूप सियावर रामचंद्र की जय पवन सुधा हनुमान की जय उमापति महादेव की जय बोलो भाई सब संतन की जय.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, let us wind up. And Gayatri, as soon as we are done, give me a call or something and we can catch up and I'll answer your question. ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ. Take care everyone. Happy Raksha Bandhan, happy Onam and the whole list of festivities. May God and Gurudev bless each one of you for a greater sankalpa, for the nobler life that we can choose ourselves to tune to. All the best. Hari Om. See you in next satsang. Until then.